Blue Falcon podcast from behind civilian lines. I'm Bobby Stegall. I'm joined today with Bryant Chambers. He has over 25,000 followers on YouTube, over 45,000 people and counting quickly on TikTok, and he has his own podcast, also the Bryant Chambers Movement. And please check him out on Facebook. And he also has his own company, Bryant Chambers Media. Please welcome Mr. Bryant Chambers.
Bobby, it's an honor to be here, man. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, of course. It's a funny story how we linked up. I'll let you go ahead and tell that part of it.
So our first connection was on TikTok, I believe, correct? You had seen a piece of content that I had made. It was like, hey, would you like to get on a podcast? Like, absolutely. Especially, one of the things that I'm really appreciating about TikTok specifically is more than any other platform, and it's why I'm the most active there. It immediately got me connected with other vets like you. Like that is something I've been trying to do for over a decade on social media and websites that I've owned in the past. And TikTok did it overnight. So it's like, hey man, would you like to be on the show? Like, yeah.
I appreciate you coming
Especially
on.
It's called the Blue Falcon podcast. I'm like, yeah, I'm doing that.
When I was trying to think of a name of it, I was like, what's the coolest name possible? And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go opposite. What's the worst name possible? You go for a podcast. And so you got to stand out somehow.
Yeah, my first podcast was called Flawed Logic for that, almost the exact same reason.
Wow, that's a good one.
It was like, people are going to think I'm ridiculous with the stuff that I say, so let me just agree with them up front.
There you go. Yep. I guess get your enemies, give them the ammo at the very beginning, and that's all they got.
Exactly, and that's all they got.
So that's great. What's your favorite thing about TikTok? Because I get made fun of all the time for being on TikTok. I'm not a 17-year-old girl dancing on there.
Right.
Although I do like to dance on there every now and then. I'm guilty of it. But what led you to get on TikTok?
The engagement. So what got me on TikTok, I was actually on Musical.ly years ago when it started. So I own a media company. So a lot of what I do, either for me or for other clients, is understanding what's going on in the social media world. So I joined Musical.ly before TikTok bought it. But what made me start getting more active there really was I just wanted to practice. I wanted to put out some content and see what was going to happen so that as I'm advising my team or advising other companies about what platforms to use, I would know what I was talking about. And then I had my Veterans Day post, which was totally by accident. I wasn't even tracking it was Veterans Day when I did it.
Sometimes things work out.
You know what I mean? It was I was singing the Airborne Ranger cadence with my youngest son walking home from school, and it quasi blew up for me. Blew up. I'm used to every once in a blue moon I'll get something that does a couple million views like on YouTube, but usually like 25,000 views over a couple of days is pretty good for someone that makes boring philosophical and science content. And I was like, oh, that was dope. Let me put out and then I noticed veterans were starting to connect with me, which was something my wife and I talked about for years for my personal brand. I was like, babe, I don't know that we need social media as much for my personal brand, because the people that I'm really, really working to reach, it's not really happening on Facebook, even with paid advertisement, or YouTube. Even though, I'm reaching millions of people, but the percentage of vets, the people that I really want to help with the work that I'm doing going forward this year, it wasn't happening. And then TikTok did it overnight. And so it was not just getting the views, because views are great, but it's the getting to connect with these other men and women. Was TikTok better than any other?
Meaningful relationships.
Sure.
That you have. Like the views, that's great. But how many views have comments? Like, to me, that the comment to view ratio is like really important to me. Exactly
right. And when vets were like, yeah, roger that, man, this is my favorite cadence, I was like, oh, this is where y'all are all hanging out. Like, all right.
You gotta remember, not being in the military anymore, maybe that's what they're doing now instead of Candy Crush.
Right. Exactly right. And I can remember, being downrange, being deployed. In my day, we didn't have smartphones, let alone, social media came a couple years after I did my thing.
Right.
But it was, I imagine, I'd be on TikTok nonstop if I had access to something like that.
Yeah. Making videos. I mean, you can even make a Humvee, downrange, going to the shooting range look cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not hard.
100%, man. You can get 1 million views just going to the weapons range. So yeah,
um,
I like that it's got me, and not just with vets. Like I've connected with other artists. You know, I was a musician once upon a time, so I love to
oh,
see the
nice.
artist. I love the musical aspect of it, and I love to see other like illustrators. My son's interested in that, so I've connected with some really cool people there. So it's just the connections more than anything, more than any other platform. TikTok has allowed me to legitimately and valuably connect with other people.
That's awesome. You know, it's I'm sure you have a quote or a phrase that you read from a book on TikTok about this, but it's all about making use of what you have in front of you.
Yeah,
If your social media is depressing to you, maybe you need to change up how you're using it.
right.
You know what I mean? And I've been guilty of the same thing going through Facebook. I'm like, oh, wow, I don't want to see that. That's boring. Oh my gosh, that's sad. Oh my God, I can't
Exactly.
believe she did what to her hair? Oh man, okay. So it's just whatever. But if you go on TikTok, it really, you feed off of whatever you're interested in.
Right.
That's how it is. So that's my favorite part about TikTok is you can really connect and watch videos. I'm sure I got onto your videos because of some of the other things that I was watching.
Right.
Some other like Dan Pena. I mean, that guy's crazy. I'm not sure how familiar you are with him, but Jordan
Yeah,
Peterson.
Jordan Peterson's
He has
amazing.
he has some really really good quotes out there. And I would put you in that category with Jordan Peterson.
Oh
So
wow,
I think your content's good, man.
that's
It
high
really is.
praise, man. That's he's
Oh,
one of
really?
my indirect mentors, man. That
Yeah.
that guy has dug me out of a lot of holes, and he doesn't know it,
Right.
unless he reads Twitter, the comments I've sent to him there.
I think
But
you'd be
yeah,
surprised. I think you'd be surprised.
yeah,
So I was looking at this email you sent me. You had 14 interesting facts about you. My favorite interesting fact, of course, was the top 5 movies.
yeah.
You had Gladiator, The Matrix, Idiocracy. Which I mean, if you haven't seen Idiocracy, you got to go out there and see it.
It's mandatory viewing. You shouldn't even be able to be an American citizen
Yeah.
without seeing that.
Here's your paperwork for being a citizen. Here's Idiocracy. Congratulations.
There'll be a 20-question quiz at the
Yeah,
end of you viewing
yeah.
it
You
to
got to
make
have the
sure.
circle and the square thing to see if you actually got it. Right?
Yeah.
Tron, that's another great one.
Yeah.
The first one or the old school one?
So I love them both, but the original is
Okay.
the king.
I mean, I got to admit, I haven't seen it, so I missed the mark on that one. I'll go back and watch that.
Yeah, it's surprisingly. I mean, obviously the special effects won't hold up today,
Right.
but it's surprisingly on point.
Hmm.
For the message that's in. Like if you look at what's going on in the technology world, it was going on back in. I don't even remember when that movie came out because I saw it years. I was too young to see it when it first came out.
Right.
But I saw it years after it came out at a friend's house, like on an old VHS tape. It's like this is freaking amazing, man.
VHS, man, that's a
Old
awesome term.
school.
And then lastly, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yes,
I gotta
sir.
ask, why is that in your top 5, man? I mean, not that I'm hating it. I love it.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anybody else say that's in the top 5.
So there's a quote. My favorite TV show of all time is Star Trek: The Next Generation, and there's an episode where they bring all these farmers on the ship, and Captain Picard, and I think Patrick Stewart was actually breaking. Like I don't think it was in the script that he was supposed to start laughing. I think he just did.
Okay.
But then he plays it off. They just turn it into a scene, and Riker, if you guys don't know the characters, the first officer of the ship is talking to the captain like, "What are you laughing about?" And he's like, "Sometimes, man, you just got to bow to the absurd." And that movie is so purposefully absurd that to me it's a perfect description of what real life is like. It's two teenagers who are failing high school who are they're almost unintelligent on purpose. Like they're so stupid that they're geniuses. Right? Kind of like Inspector Gadget, like solving
my God.
crimes on accident. And they travel. First of all, George Carlin's in the movie. Let's start there.
Okay. Yeah.
And then they do time travel in a phone booth. And like I've watched commentaries on that and the sequel, and the directors, the two guys who made the film, like their whole point was how ridiculous can we make a movie? And I just think that, and they did it. It was, life is so absurd that this movie actually resembles real life in a way that's funny. And I like the adventure. You like the characters, you want them to win, you're rooting for them. And it's so ridiculous that I love it, that it's like, oh man, this is such a beautiful, unintentional social commentary. It's almost like Idiocracy. Like Idiocracy is billed as a comedy, but it's really a horror movie documentary. Like,
oh man, yeah.
This is
Real
what life's going to
real
be
life.
like in 500 years, guys. Here, have a laugh about it.
Yeah.
Like, none of us are going to be there, so we can laugh. But it's like, oh, that's actually really scary because all of that
Got
can happen.
electric lights. That's my favorite
Yeah,
phrase. It's got electric lights. Yes, it has electric lights.
it's kind of.
Scary.
So yeah, that Bill and Ted's makes the list. It was one of those movies that hit at the right time. Again, I saw it years after it came out. I think I was in middle school when I saw it, and we used to have, back before Blockbuster took over everything and then died. You know,
Right.
you had home video rental stores and pretty much every neighborhood had one.
Yep.
And we're just like, it was having a sleepover at one of my buddies' houses. Like, let's rent a movie. It's like, oh, these guys are time traveling with the phone booth. I was like, well, of course we're gonna watch that. Like,
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
we rented that, and we rented Peter Jackson's first movie, which is Bad Taste. And you can't get it today, but on the old VHS, the cover of the film was the alien flicking off the audience. And we're like, there's an alien with his middle finger. We're getting that one too.
Yeah. Okay. So good homegrown movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%, man.
No, that's great. I also saw on here, and I guess for the people who are listening, Brian and I have never actually talked before, so this is kind of our first conversation. Welcome, guys.
Yeah, welcome.
I definitely want to let the audience know a little bit more about you.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and just give a quick biography of how you grew up, where you grew up,
For
kind
sure.
of some of the mindset that you had growing up. And I saw that the fact that you added this in here, you wanted to be a pro football player, but you failed.
Yes. You want me to talk about that?
Well, it struck a nerve with me because you still have an attachment to it, but you recognize that it was a failure, but you obviously became very successful. So I'm kind of curious as to why you put that on there.
That's a great question, Bob. I'm actually glad you asked that, because that's a good topic for anybody listening, to help anyone that has a dream and then fails at it. But in the beginning, so I'm born. I'm from Washington, D.C. I'm born in Washington, D.C. to a very young mother who's still in college and a very young father who are not married in college. The father bounces, but mom is very close to her parents, who also happen to be in D.C. at the time, or they come to D.C. to help. And over the course of time, I get adopted by my mom's parents. Right. So I still grow up very close to my mother. I grew up not knowing my biological father at all. So when most people hear me talking about my dad, I'm talking about biologically my grandfather, but legally, because I was adopted, my dad.
Right.
And so I was raised in a military household. So I was born on Bryant Street, Northeast Washington, D.C. That's how I got my name, because my mother's not very original or apparently creative. I love you, Ma. Just joking.
Oh, man.
And she swears she named me after one of my brothers. I'm like, nah, not happening.
Sign outside.
Yeah. So I'm born there. Dad is stationed at Fort Lewis at the time. We go back there, move around the world. Fort Lewis, Hawaii. Texas is when I'm finally old enough to remember much of anything.
Okay.
So Fort Hood.
I was there.
Yep, Fort Hood, and a brief stint at Fort Sam Houston before Fort Hood, and then that we go from there to back to here, back to DC, to Germany.
What did your dad do?
So he was an infantryman.
Oh wow, okay, awesome.
Yeah,
I got the.
he was
the
he was the guy. He was the queen of battle, man. And so we went from there to Germany to from Germany to Atlanta. And so I'm the youngest, and obviously I'm a grandchild, so I'm quite a bit younger than my closest sibling is 10 years older than me. Even though he's technically my uncle, you know, we were still pretty close in age. Right. And so I'm still close with all my brothers to this day, and we live near each other. But Pops retires right around, I'm at 11 or 12. So I got to spend a lot of my life as a military kid, but also a portion of my childhood as a civilian kid. And then started getting into sports, wanted to play professional football. When I say I failed, because what a lot of people don't know is Kurt Govea, who was a Washington Redskin, and Darryl Green were coaches of mine. So, and I had Kurt Govea in my ear telling me, these are the things you need to do to succeed. These are the things I want you to consider as a player, because I know you take this seriously. The reason why I failed is just because I chickened out.
Wow.
You know, instead of fighting to get a scholarship to go play football at a school, I took an ROTC scholarship. And obviously taking an ROTC scholarship is not the chickening out part. Okay. But instead of being willing to fail at something I really cared about, I took a road that was more guaranteed. Okay. So kind of the moral of the story there is, if I wonder sometimes, did I really, really want to play professional football, or was that just a cool thing to like? I wanted all the glory, but I didn't want any of the pain, right? And that was really
Right.
the thing. I didn't want any of the pain of loss, or my dad told me for years, you're going to regret that, and I did. But eventually got over it. Started playing football on some military base years ago. Realized I don't really love this as much as I thought I did. I'm good, but I go on an ROTC scholarship with the idea that I'm still probably going to try to play football, because they'll waive you having to do PT if you're on the football team and all that
Right.
stuff. They make provision for that, but didn't. I was also a computer scientist, so that made it really hard,
Yeah.
time wise. But
Studying. Yeah, that's a lot of studying.
exactly right. But at the end of the day, when I look back, I don't think it was really a dream. I think it was a kid that didn't know what he wanted to do. He just wanted to be great at something. And football was a sport that I loved playing, and it was something that I was naturally good at. And so it was like kind of like when you're in second grade, oh, I want to be an astronaut. Okay, cool. Um, so that's what I mean by failure. Is more, it was getting the self-awareness to realize that I don't love football. Like, I imagine if I had showed up to one of the training camps and saw how those dudes work, I'd have been like, nah, I don't love football as much as
Yeah.
that dude.
That guy likes it a lot more.
Yeah. Like, in fact, I went to high school with a guy that tried out for the Steelers and the Cowboys. And he was a couple years older than me, but we knew him because he was like a town hero when it came to that stuff. And he said he saw Jerome the Bus Bettis hit a dude in practice one time, hit him so hard the dude's bleeding from his head. And I was like, yeah, nah, I don't think I love football that much, bro. I don't want to die.
No, yeah, that's a heck of a way to get a headache.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, graduate college, get commissioned in the Army, do Fort Sill, do Fort Benning eventually. I was on the invasion team in OIF. So I was with the Sledgehammer Brigade.
That's
the guys
2003, correct?
Yep, 2003. So I was there in 2002 and in 2003. So we were doing all the staging, all the build up to the war, and then we were the guys that did the invasion. Okay. And then 4th Infantry came and got our backs and got us out of there.
Cool.
And then, eventually left the military, did the Fortune 500 thing, started my own company, and then really started to get focused on working to help veterans avoid some of the pitfalls that I went through in my career after leaving the military that, led me to now, I'm dealing with chronic PTSD. So most of my work during the day these days is focused on my health. So it's dealing with chronic PTSD and anxiety and depression, things that I wasn't even aware that I had until I went through the disability process. Like, I thought that was life.
Right.
I thought being able to get out of bed for days at a time was just part of the game. And then my doctor was like, "No, that is not part of the game."
Yeah. Man, I'm glad you went through that process.
Yeah.
I think just hearing that, of course, one of the tips you would give soldiers is to go through that process.
Yeah.
When they get out.
Yeah, and it's one of the things I do. One of the reasons why I produce so much content, and this is specifically for the podcast and on YouTube and TikTok to a degree as well, is helping people generate the self-awareness that I did not get until I started, and really until I got into the military part of my career, and starting to realize, oh, I'm actually good at this military thing. Mm-hmm. I'm actually decent at leading soldiers. And I'm blessed because, I had some of the best NCOs in the game, literally.
That makes a difference.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. But still not, like, knowing from a young age that I needed to own my own business, but not knowing the path to get there, and then trying a bunch of other things that didn't work. So it's wanting to help guys and ladies avoid kind of what I call cubicle hell. After you get out of the military, don't just go chase the money.
Right.
Find something that makes you come alive, because it's going to matter a lot more to us in many cases than it's going to matter to someone that just went to college and went and got a job.
Mm-hmm. So what would some of the, I guess, other tips you would have? I mean, of course, you have a whole program for this, but just a quick snippet of one or two other things.
So the biggest thing, first and foremost, is self-awareness. And there's plenty of tests that can help anybody do that. I recommend the Hexaco test, HEXACO.org. Really get a solid foundation of who you are, And then like shameless plug, take my 5 pillars of self-awareness course. It's free. It's on YouTube. If you go to my YouTube channel, it's one of the first things you'll see.
Free. Yeah. Okay.
And it'll show you, okay, now that you understand your personality after you take the Hexaco test, now let's establish core values. Jordan Peterson has something similar, I believe. I haven't gone through it. The self-authoring program, I believe, does some similar things.
Okay.
So I would recommend programs like that too.
Okay.
But it's going to help you define, what are my core values as a human? What are my motivations? What am I actually good at? Because there's a difference between hunting people and then having to tell a corporation how hunting people is going to help them make money. And how do you, there's a part of the course that actually bridges that gap for people.
Okay.
Here's how we translate being an infantryman to being working in a Fortune 500 company, or whatever, or starting a business, whatever you decide to do. And so really honing in on, and I would recommend guys and ladies do that before they resign or ETS or retire. Start to figure that out now.
Months out, like 2 years, 18 months.
100%.
I'd recommend. Okay.
100%. And then start to accept that you are a certain way, and not, so that's the first half. Then the second piece of advice is own that. Accept that that's who you are, and show yourself compassion. Don't make decisions that go against those 5 pillars, which is what I did in the latter parts of my career before I got serious about my business. Was I went and did some work in the federal world because it paid very well and the work was easy, and I almost went freaking nuts and had a stroke.
Oh, well, sorry, man. That's not. Yeah,
no, it is. It's absolutely hilarious. It's absolutely.
I was saying a stroke. Okay, my bad.
No. Laughter is the proper response because I lived through it, and it was so easy. And like anytime you show up to a place and within the first week you're looking for civilian jobs at Ranger Battalion, it's like, all right, something ain't right.
Yeah.
Something is not right. But it's not having the self-awareness to know that I'm not ever driven by money. I'm always driven by my own freedom, and then driven by my ability to contribute to a mission that I care about.
Right.
And unfortunately, a lot of state and federal work is, the missions are mundane, or in some cases don't even need to exist. And so it's really wanting, and it doesn't have to be in the federal, it could be in any,
right. No. Yeah.
Any sector of the labor force. But if I'd had better, if I had gone through my 5 pillars of self-awareness course when I was 26 years old, I would have been on a much different flight path.
All right. Well, I definitely agree with all those, and those are things I have to do myself. I mean, like, see this guitar back here?
Yeah.
I could play it. I can't sing to save my life. If I started singing on here, talk about podcast drops, it'd be bad. I'd be
or it might be great.
No,
it might be great.
No. I would not be getting any representation calls. That is for sure. But I do have the hobbies and things I care about on the side besides my work.
Right.
And so, how does that tie into, like, when you talk to people and you're coaching them and you're guiding them? How do you tell someone that they have a passion that they may not be good at, and how do they decide to whether to keep that passion going or not? Because like the guitar is my friend, for instance. Like it's my vent when I play guitar.
Right.
I'm never gonna get on stage and do it, but it's something that's important to me. So how do you guide people on what's good and what's not good?
That's great question. So the fourth pillar in that 5 pillars of self-awareness course addresses that by helping you figure out, okay, it's called the Eulerian Destiny. So it asks you 4 questions. What were you raised around? I was raised around military leaders. So I'm going to have a natural proficiency in leadership because I'm being, raised by it in the mix, right? So it's, what are you raised around? What are you curious about, right? So you're curious about music. So that becomes one of the pillars. That becomes one of the, and it's a big Venn diagram of 4 circles. And then what are you curious about? What have you been doing for the last 10 years? And then what do strangers compliment you on? So if you found that music was in all 4 of those quadrants, then you may have something that you can legitimately pursue as a career. In 1 or 2 quadrants, and what you do is just what Peter Drucker talks about in Managing Oneself, which is feedback analysis. Do it for 6 months. See if you can get good enough to where, and if we're just talking career stuff, do it for 6 months every day. And if you believe you can get good enough to get paid at it, then continue it. Otherwise, like I enjoy badminton.
Really?
Yeah.
First person I've ever heard that. Okay,
Yeah.
cool, man.
But probably not going to get picked up by the Olympic team. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Or I tell people, like, my dream is basketball, and you're 4'11".
Wow.
Unless you can dunk, I would probably say genetics disagree with you. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
there's a lot of practicality to it. But
Right.
it's like, if we're talking about just having it, like, I collect, one of my hobbies is collecting books, obviously,
Yeah.
and then video games, right? That's a hobby. I don't need to be a pro game player. I suck at most of the games I play. I'm older, so I'm not going to have the dexterity my kids have to be able to even compete, like, physically.
Right.
So that stays in the hobby jar. That stays in, but it also was a part of my business for a time. I used to write reviews and stuff like that. So there's ways you can even turn hobbies into side hustles that maybe aren't the 80% of your time, right? Like, my core value, my core skill is developing leaders. Now I can turn that into helping people grow businesses. I can turn that into helping people become better leaders. That's where 80% of my time needs to be focused, is helping leaders lead. But I can use the 20%, to sell trinkets on eBay or whatever, to collect video games that, praise and value. I can use the 20%. Sometimes I've got a couple artists on TikTok who are trying to get me back into music. Because at one point, the reason why I say it's a good question is I thought music was going to be my professional pursuit for a time. But then I got a lot of awareness by playing in a band and being paid to do shows, and realizing, working with other mentors in the business, how much I'm going to have to sacrifice just to feed my family. And I was like, I've already had a career. I don't need to go through all that.
Right.
So I just, music is something, when someone calls me up, it's kind of like, part-time Batman. Like, hey man, we need you to come rescue these people over here. Like, all right, we'll pay you $200 to play a show. Like, okay, I'll do it, because now I can just do it for fun.
Yeah, you enjoy it, and so you're getting paid, and the audience enjoys it. It's a win-win-win.
Exactly.
So that's great. And I had another great question, and it literally just slipped my mind because I was thinking about us, rocking out on the stage together.
Yeah, man. And you name the time and the place, I'll be there for sure.
Fair enough. Well, let's go back to something else I made a note of earlier, and this is by far the coolest thing about you, I think. Your granddad was the skipper on or the commander of the carrier. Is that right?
So that was my uncle.
Your uncle.
That was my pop's brother. Yeah.
Dude, man, I saw that, man.
Yeah.
That is legendary, man.
Yeah.
Please tell that story. Oh, man.
So Uncle Larry, Admiral Lawrence Chambers, gets this frantic call during the Vietnam War. By the way, just for context, he's the first black commander of an aircraft carrier. In this case, the Midway, which you can go see. I believe that's the one in San Diego. And you can go see it. You can see what it looks like. I actually drove a speedboat under it a couple years ago, which was awesome. And he gets this frantic call from a South Vietnamese pilot who's got people on board saying, we need to land. We don't have enough fuel to get back to the beach. Can we land on your aircraft carrier? What's not in the video, because I had to cut a bunch of stuff to make it fit on TikTok, is Uncle Larry ran that through his chain of command. Like, hey, sir, hey, boss, guy wants to land. I want to let him land, but we don't have room on the aircraft carrier because all these choppers that are here that aren't fueled up, and we can't fly them because they don't have any fuel. And they're like, no, screw that guy. Like, we're not wasting hundreds of millions of dollars of government equipment to save these 7 people. And my uncle basically said, Roger that. Thanks for the advice. I'm doing it anyway.
Yeah. Just so you know, I asked.
Yeah, I just wanted you to know I'm doing it. And he saves these people's lives, right? And people have seen that footage of the people pushing the helicopters, but a lot of times they don't know what that's from, and that's Uncle Larry. And you can actually see him and my dad if you ever make it to, and for anybody listening, if you ever make it to the African American History Museum, he and my dad are in the book they have a big display of Colin Powell, but right next to him, my uncle and my dad have pictures in this kind of yearbook of African American senior leaders in the military. And but yeah, so it was like, and what he says at the end of the video was so on point. He's like, my advice to any commander is you got to do what you think is right, and in a leadership position, you run into that. Like at a much lower level, one of my NCOs, I had to take up from one of my NCOs who the boss wanted to fire in my company. And I was just like, nah, boss, what you want to fire him for is not, first of all, it's not even a lawful order for me to get rid of this kid. And I'm not going to ruin his career because you think he may have caused an issue. I said, I investigated the entire squad. They say they did everything by the book. They did everything right. I can't go against my NCO. And it turned into a shout match for me. And, a man that I dearly respect. This isn't somebody that I'm trying to disparage.
Right.
He's a huge mentor of mine. But he and I got into a quasi shouting match over firing this NCO. And it's just like, no, boss, I can't in good conscience. What does that say to the rest of my NCOs? That you make a mistake, or you don't even make a mistake, but because you something happened and we don't know who to blame it on, I'm just going to start firing people. It's like, sir, how do I maintain command in that situation?
Who's the next fall guy? Who's the next fall guy?
Like, I got to stand for this kid. And again, the credit of my NCOs, I had a gunnery sergeant who had already schooled me on everything by the book, all the UCMJ. Like, I was quoting paragraphs of books. The colonel was looking at me like, how the hell do you even know that? Like, hey, boss. It is because I got, Gunnery Sergeant Smith just freaking squared me. It gave me a 30-minute crash course.
Awesome.
In ballistics and all this other stuff, But that's the thing is, you got to stand for what you think is right, no matter what it costs you. And that's another thing that I try to help a lot of our warriors with when they leave the military. You don't see that a lot. I've seen a lot of civilians go the wrong way because that's what's going to help them get promoted. I don't want to go against leadership, even though they're dead wrong,
right?
Even maybe legally wrong. And it's just like, guys, you got to stand for something greater than your BMW. And that's such a hard thing for a warrior to accept, that I live in a culture that behaves this way.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, I definitely, I guess, was on the receiving end, or I feel like I was, of the people not having my back towards the end of my career. But I'll tell you that offline. That's definitely another reason where the Blue Falcon comes into play. But
buddy.
Story for another day. Back to your Uncle Larry, though. What happened with his command? Like, was he? What I mean, did they get in trouble?
No, he went on to become. I believe he retired as a 2-star.
That's freaking awesome.
So he was a captain at the time. No, and I'm sure there was some professional pissing contest at some point, because the boss that I was just talking about, who I got into it with his boss during the war over some similar, his boss was trying to do something with our unit that he was just like, no, we're the most trained soldiers on ground in country right now. You're not pulling us out of the fight to go pick up trash. Like, he got in a fight at one of the division meetings. It was just like, we came to see him after, because he there was a change of command before the war was over and before we came home. But when me and my brother Chris got home, and he was the unit next to mine, he was in charge of that one.
Okay.
And he was one of my closest friends to this day. I love that dude. And he hits me up because we get back home. He's like, let's go see the old man, man. Let's go see how he's doing. Let's go check on him. And so we're joking with him like, hey, sir, you led one of the most decorated units in the history of warfare. We set all these records for all the crap we did. And I was like, hey, sir, when you getting promoted? And he's like, dude, I don't know if I am. And we were like, what?
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, I got 2 blocked because of that fight I got into. Like, you got to be kidding me. Gosh, that punk, word I won't call that dude, gave you a 2 block over that. Like, okay. And, he ended up getting promoted anyway, so it was fine. But it's
still that
standing for what you know is right sometimes can cost you, man.
Yeah. Well, in the end, though, it's I guess your morals. I mean, you got to be able to sleep at night.
Exactly right. Like, I'd rather sleep. I'm sure he would rather sleep as a lieutenant colonel who took care of his troops and didn't get anybody killed over some stupidity, political, bureaucratic stuff, than be a 1-star general who, saved his career but got a bunch of people hurt or killed, man. So
that's a lesson for everybody, even civilians. Stand for
100%.
So when you got out of the military, I noticed on here let's see, where is it at? Sorry. What you see? You helped run part of a billionaire's company.
Yeah.
Do you mind diving into that?
Yeah, no worries, man. I worked for a commercial real estate firm. who was hired by. At first, it wasn't a billionaire. Actually, it was I believe it was a hedge fund company that owned the project at first.
Okay.
So there
Was it like
was probably
REITs or
several billionaires that we were working for.
okay.
But then it was bought out by a billionaire real estate investor. Um, and so essentially, and to be specific, so I was the chief operations officer for Union Station in DC. So that's all the operations from making the station run, not the train side, that's Amtrak and that's government and blah, 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 but running the building and the facility.
Okay.
Right. And so it's also a prime piece of real estate. So that's why the billionaire is interested in it, because he wants to invest his money, purchase the leasehold, and then be able to collect the revenues from all of the different five-star tenants that are in there, from the restaurants to the stores, all that stuff. And so I was brought on at first to be the chief of ops because it just so happens to be a terrorist target. And they wanted a guy that knew about dealing with terrorists to be able to come in and run the ops. Because, it was because I remember interviewing with my boss, who was the vice president, and then so the billionaire is the president. And I remember she was interviewing me, best boss I've ever had. I love that woman to this day. And she's like, "So what questions do you have of us? Because we're ready to go forward with this." And I said, "Well, not to knock myself out of getting this job, but I don't know jack about commercial real estate. So is that going to be a deal breaker?" She's like, "Bro, I need your other skills. I can teach." She's like, "I've been doing this 25 years. I'll teach you commercial real estate. Okay, I need your skills as an operations officer to come in here and run security and engineering. And eventually the president's going to have a bunch of inaugural stuff going here. So you're going to have to run the command center for, Secret Service. You're going to have to be one of the chairmen of the Capitol Hill Security Council. I need that guy. I can teach you all the buttons and whistles for doing accounting and real estate. I need the dude that can run ops." I was like, "Done.
Enough.
I'll start tomorrow if you guys are down." So that's what I did for a couple of years. And so that's where I really cut my teeth, other than military experience, which is very good, translates very well to running a business. That's where I learned the running a business, from the planning, running the operations, because, I was also the budget manager, fell under my, the marketing team fell under my purview, all these different things, managing engineering and security and facilities maintenance and cleaning and marketing and the budget and all that stuff. So that's where I really, working with that real estate investor and with my boss and the other people that were there, that's where I learned, that's where I really got the stronger business acumen.
So the tenants, I guess you would say, of that station, did you deal directly with them and their business and help them with marketing? Is that kind of how you broke into that, or?
So no, so think of it like a mall, right? Yep. So you've got Godiva chocolates in there, everything from Godiva chocolate to Beef Smith's restaurant to Uno's Pizzeria to Auntie Anne's pretzels. Right? So I'm interacting directly with the tenants, first of all, to provide them with space, but also to collect rent and in many cases, a percentage of sales. Okay. And in return, I'm providing them with a secure place to do their business.
Right.
And I'm providing them with strategic level, kind of oversight level marketing.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So my marketing team is more about bringing humans into the building.
Not specifically a business.
Not necessarily and sometimes to a specific store, because we would do promotions where if they wanted to be a part of some marketing that we were putting out, I think they had to pay or something to be like Auntie Annie's would be the sponsor for this thing we're going to send out to the world, because you're talking about a place that even without any marketing, you're doing like 90,000 to 100,000 people are coming through the station a day. So people are going to eat. People are going to buy magazines.
Someone's going to buy it.
Someone's going to buy something from McDonald's or whatever other tenant we have up in here. So it was really more, the marketing specifically was more during those boutique times where traffic may be a little bit lower or traffic may be higher because it's spring and there's going to be a huge amount of tourism. So now we want to attract people, not just to travel through Union Station, but come take the tour, come do all these different things that we're doing there.
Man, that's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, man, it was fun though. God bless.
How old were you when you were doing that?
So I was not allowed to say my age.
Oh,
My boss, no, I'll tell you.
oh, okay. I was like, man, top secret. Okay.
No, no, not at all. My boss wouldn't let me tell anyone else that didn't know me, like from the different partners like Amtrak that we had to like, don't tell anyone your age because they won't believe because I was 25, I think, when I started
I
that
wouldn't believe that
job.
at all. I would
You know
not
what I mean?
believe that.
You
I'm
know what I
like,
mean?
no,
Like
get this
they're
kid
like,
out of
if you
here.
tell them you're 25, get this kid out of my. Like, could you imagine running the security council meeting with Metropolitan Police, Capitol Police,
Secret
Treasury
Service.
Police, all these people in a meeting, and people from the community as well coming and talking about crime and homelessness and all these other things. There's a 25-year-old kid chair. So I was 25 or 26, I think, when I started there. And she was like,
Well,
don't tell anyone how old you are. Grow a beard and look older. Like,
well,
all right.
you're an old soul anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
Anybody listens to your content, we were talking about that earlier. You're definitely an old soul. So
Yeah, for sure,
that's
man.
perfect. So what made you? I guess not made you. What led you to leave that job for what you do now?
So I had actually started my business just kind of as a side hustle while I was still in the Army. And I knew long term that's what I wanted to do. Plus, I had some challenges with the direction the ownership was taking with the property at the end of my time there. Nothing illegal or anything like that, but there was like I had to do a congressional testimony over some stuff that went down that I technically my people caused. So but there's a whole political nightmare to that. Not much different than the stuff you hear liberals and conservatives screaming at each other on the internet now.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, it was the vision the owner had for the property didn't jive with the vision that when Union Station was built historically. This is this 5-star freaking gorgeous landmark of just awesomeness. Plus, they didn't really want to pay anybody, and there was like rumors that they were going to fire my boss and then promote me to do the job.
That's a good
Which
relationship
is
with your boss.
yeah, like that's a great
No friction
relationship. No friction there. But then they're probably also not going to pay you much more. So it was like, well, you're going to give me all the responsibility and not even up my pay. So when all that stuff started, all of us, there was just a mass exodus.
Yeah.
Just like all of us. Like I got out of there. My boss left shortly thereafter. It was, it just got uncomfortable to be there, unfortunately, because the mindset was profit, 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 profit. And when we first started there, when our team really gelled together, our focus was really just give the customer the 100% best experience they can have in such an awesome place and make them want to come back. And then it was, put a kiosk selling oil right here. And it's like, oh, dude, I get that you're trying to maximize profit because you're very, very wealthy. And no BS. I liked the dude. He was he gave me money when my son was born. Like, he was a great dude. It was just business wise. Huh?
Can you say his name? I'm kidding. I'll expect
yeah, I'll say his name. It's a gentleman. He's on the Forbes list. It's a gentleman named, because you could honestly just look up Union Station's owner. It's going to tell you. It's Ben Ashkenazi.
Okay, cool.
And great dude, man. He was always very kind and very good to me. It was just what Peter Drucker says in managing oneself is when you and a company's when your values and a company's values are at odds, you're going to be doomed to mediocrity, right? So I knew that the way Ben wanted to go with the business wasn't the way I wanted to work. And I wanted to do my own thing. So it wasn't even like, oh, I got beef. It was, I don't really want to do it the way they're doing it.
And that's fine.
And we just parted ways. And it was, and there was no bad blood. There was no, oh, I can't believe this. And I mean, I don't know that he even knew I left, because I'm for certain not the only person in my position that he has to manage, because he owns like the Riverwalk in San Antonio. Oh, he owns so he owns that. He owns Grand Central Station in New York, I think is under his I think he owns that one. I know our company manages that one. I can't remember if he owned it or not, but I mean, I am one of many people that he had to deal with, but I always respected him. He was always good to me, because that was what some of the weird rumors were before I left, was people that his team brought into the project were pulling me aside like, hey, yo, why didn't you come to the meeting today, bro? because word on the street is Ben really likes you and he wants to keep you, but they may get rid of the other person. I'm like, why are you telling me
That's
this?
just like that's like some housewife TV stuff,
Right.
man. Like,
And I guarantee Ben had nothing to do with that.
yeah, yeah.
I
Like
got nothing but respect for him, but it was like the people under him were just like, oh, dude, you got to be kidding me.
yeah, man. It's
And
like
you don't
being
want to
in some
call
private
him
news
like,
network.
Ben, do you know what's happening down here? Your people are like, that's
That's
just a
even worse.
punk move.
That gets
Right.
worse, right?
Like,
Who's going around spreading stuff? Like, I don't know.
yeah.
I heard. It's like, no, you're not helping the situation if you say that. Like,
Right. So it just got really uncomfortable to be in that situation. So I bounced.
well, that's fair enough. And I've yet to leave the company I work for now is Penn Mutual out here in I started in Nashville, moved out here to Knoxville, and their qualities. Let's say qualities. The way they decide how they do business is exactly the way I want to do business. In the financial world for my clients. But people ask me all the time, am I solely pushing their pushing their vision for clients? I'm like, yeah, I am, because it aligns with mine. The second it doesn't, of course, I won't. Like you get to choose business, who you do business with, and you get to choose how you do business. And I think that's something I'm going to keep with me, especially after my experience in the military, having to make sure everyone's shoes fit the exact same way.
Right.
I'm not that guy. Like, it'll take me forever. Like, there's certain shoes, that I wear, loose, and some of them, I want tight. Depends on what I'm doing that day.
Right.
So I never want to be conformed to, one way. And that's why I genuinely love life outside the military. It's because I can do what I want to, when I want to, how I want to.
Right.
But it takes guidance from, honestly, from people like you with some wisdom. And I'm gonna hit you with some really hard questions here.
Okay.
Now,
I like hard questions.
yeah. I've recently been on this, I guess, questioning people's intent on social media. And the past 6 months or to a year, maybe it's because of the influx of social media in my own personal life, or if it's becoming more prominent, I'm not sure. But I see more and more, quote unquote, life coaches out there. Now, the reason why I asked you all these other questions beforehand is because your credentials are Loctite. I don't think anybody could ever question your ability to lead, or you're born and raised around leaders that are, historically going to be historical Americans, is what I'm trying to say.
Right. 100%.
So whenever you started your life coaching, or I'm not sure what you want to call your program, you have a legitimacy and a reason why you're doing it, and something to fall back on. Like, these are my experiences.
Right.
So how do you set yourself aside from people who are fake, who are saying, hey, buy my book. It'll really motivate you to do, chase your dreams, whatever.
Right. So a old boss of mine way back in the day used to have a picture on his wall that said, it's one of my favorite quotes. It says, critique by creating. So the way I set myself apart is very much just, instead of worrying about who's out there not doing the right thing, or who's just in it to make a quick buck because they can, because like no one ever really hears me call myself a life coach. And that's part of the reason why, is because that terminology is kind of stigmatized, right? And a lot of what I do goes beyond. Life coaching is certainly a part of what I do, but it's really more holistic, like business development coaching and helping people,
Right. I just grabbed back that one.
Yeah, no. You're 100% on. So the way I set myself apart is just be dope. You know what I mean? Like, just be the best, be the guy that gets the results.
Yeah.
When a kid goes through, you can pay $1,000 to go through somebody's course, or you can go to YouTube right now and take my 69 Pillars of Success course, right? And when a kid emails me last year, before the end of last year, and says, hey man, just went through the course, appreciate it, I'm glad you gave this out for free. Over the course of time that it took me to go through the course, now at the end of the year, I have increased my income by $20,000 a year, just applying these principles. It's like, okay, just get the results, right? Like, just be the dude that actually gets results for people. And most people can sniff out the fake stuff anyway. So I don't pay any attention to, because one, I don't consume a lot of media online.
Mm-hmm.
I spend a decent amount of time producing it, probably less than people think I do because I've been at this since, before the internet. But since I was a little kid, I've been producing content online. But it's just one of those things where I don't even worry about it. It's almost like Tony Robbins talks about that, where people steal his stuff and upload it. The reason why he doesn't fight with them, he's like, because dude, that was 20 years ago. He's like, I'm making way doper stuff now. I'm not worried about this guy. He's like, and what's going to happen is maybe 100 people do buy a course from that dude that robbed me, but then he doesn't get them the results that I can, and then they're still hungry. He's like, eventually it's going to work its way to me, and that's kind of how I look at it. Is and I have an abundance mentality. Like there's enough to go around for all of us to eat.
It's that.
Yeah, there's so much opportunity for all of us to eat that I don't need to spend any time. One of the things I say on social media a lot, because truth be told, there's a lot of things that happen on social media that bug me. But I make it a point not to knock anybody's hustle. It's like, if this is how you're feeding your kids, I wouldn't do that. But if that's how you're feeding kids, who am I to come into your world? It's almost like that Bill Cosby yelling at Eddie Murphy for telling dirty jokes. Meanwhile, you know what I mean? It's who are you to?
We're not gonna go there.
Right. We'll cut it right there. But who are you to tell me anything about how I'm feeding my kids?
Right.
I mean, you're not over here helping me pay bills. But at the same time, certainly I see things on TikTok and other places. Like, I actually had a conversation with TikTok. Well, it wasn't a conversation. It was me sending them a message for a video they deleted of mine that I knew offended a couple people, but I was okay with that. It wasn't intended to offend, but it was intended to make a point and hold people accountable. And they deleted it. And I said, TikTok, just need to understand why that was removed, because I got no message about it. And if it was a community guidelines violation, please help me understand how me using one swear word, which is what everybody honed in on, was more offensive than Charlie D'Amelio dancing to racial slurs and the promotion of illicit drug use to young people.
Yeah, like
I just need to understand that.
Like that was it.
Right. And it was the way I used the word.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the word itself.
But
some people were legitimately offended because they didn't get it.
Okay.
And I knew that going in. I remember the night before I released it, I did a live stream saying 10% of people that are going to see this are going to lose their mind, because I've been at this a while. I knew it was coming. And so anyway, I just said, hey, TikTok, I'm not knocking Charlie's hustle. I hope she becomes a billionaire. She's great. Do your thing. All I'm saying is, I'm sitting over here with a deleted video because it wasn't family friendly, right? So but I don't spend any time worrying about that stuff in the public space, because it's like, look, just go make another dope video. I made another video that now is pushing 1 million views, and that video wasn't going to do amazing. It would have probably got to about 100,000 views and tapped out. But
let's make an app to where we can put those videos on.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, and so I just joined. I just got accepted a couple weeks ago into Jordan Peterson's social media platform, ThinkSpot, man.
You didn't bring that up earlier? Are you kidding?
Yeah, man. I know. I didn't want to insert it, but yeah, I got accepted. Okay. I'm on there. I haven't done much with it yet, but I will. And one of the most beautiful ThinkSpot. Yeah, just sign up, get on the waiting list, because it took me. I think I was on the waiting list for 4 or 5 months. Get on there as soon as you can, man. And if it lets me, remind me, if it lets me invite a friend, I'll just invite you. Just make sure I have your email address.
All right. Yeah. That's awesome.
And if it'll let me, I'll just invite you to the platform, because it's the first thing that happens when you try to produce content. And this is, I'm so excited that it does this. It makes you pay. You have to pay a yearly fee to produce content.
Awesome.
Which is amazing, because all the people with their simple-minded, being offended at everything, and simple-minded, I'm going to make content that I didn't think through because I know it's going to be edgy or sensational and it's going to get clicks. None of those people are going to want to pay to do that, because they can do it on TikTok or YouTube or wherever they do their thing.
Has to be meaningful, right?
Yeah, when you have to pay to be on the platform, you're going to think twice about that thing you're getting ready to upload.
Really want to waste that money?
Exactly. So yeah, I'm supremely excited. In fact, I sent Jordan Peterson a message on Twitter I think it was the night I applied, and said, Jordan, and I think he might have been I don't know if he was still in or had just gotten out of rehab at the time, but it was like, listen, I know you're probably not going to see this, but I will delete all my other social media if you require it, just to get on your platform, bro. Like, man, please.
Okay. I thought I was a Jordan Peterson fan. I would pull up my YouTube watch list right now.
Yeah.
Every other video, Jordan Peterson probably.
Yeah.
Like I have that playing in the background a lot of times when I'm working, just
Yeah.
because of he's one of those gentlemen that admits struggle
Yes.
and how he's encountered it in his own life and how he views opinions of others, and he's never really upset at somebody for thinking differently than him.
Right.
Is really surprising to me. He's like, well, that's what you think. You can think that if you want to.
Exactly.
Wrong, kind of, but here's why. I'm like, oh, dang, okay.
Yeah,
Right. I didn't think you
exactly.
could even say that. All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
He's been a huge voice in the last couple of years. Because it's funny, it was similar to what you said at the beginning of the podcast. It was a YouTuber who put me onto him when I was really starting to get traction on YouTube before I kind of walked away from it. And it was in the comments of one of my videos. I was talking about personality psychology or something. He's like, hey, have you ever heard of Jordan Peterson? You remind me of him. And I'd never heard of him. I was like, well, I'm going to look him up. Who am I reminding people of? And then I get to his page. I'm like, I remind you of this dude?
That's a big compliment.
Like,
Yeah.
thanks. Are you
Yeah.
sure you got the right? Did you comment on the right dude's
Is
video?
marijuana legal in your state right now?
Right. Like, I don't, like, it's a huge compliment. I'm honored. I just don't know that I'm worthy
No, you are. You are.
of
You
someone
100%
that plugged in, man. Because
No,
one of
you
my
are.
goals is to get him either on my show or to get on his, or both. So that's one of the things I'm working on, getting my rep up.
You know, I'd be very surprised if he heard this or heard any of your stuff. If you asked him to come on, I'd be very surprised if he said no. If he had
Yeah.
the time for it. He seems
Yeah,
like that
that's the
kind of
thing,
person.
is just getting him to find a space where he has time. Because he seems like such a good-hearted person. He'd almost just do it just because someone who loves what he does asked him to.
Yeah, that's how I feel right now with you. So thank
Oh
you.
man,
Yeah,
dude,
appreciate
come on. This is my honor, bro.
it. Okay. All right. Back to the other people on social media, and maybe you can help me with this because this is something I struggle with. Is so when someone gives financial advice or guidance, especially like blanket guidance for people,
Yeah.
like I can see scams a long way away because I am in the business,
Right.
and that upsets me because of that person that, is listening is not only going to lose their wealth or it's a part of their wealth because of this stupid idea, but they're going to lose their legacy wealth, their family
Yeah.
generational wealth.
Ooh. Yeah.
And so that's what really bugs me. So how would you, part two of that, part of me wants to just go at people.
Of course, man. We're warriors, brother.
Just call them
That's
out.
what we
Yeah,
do.
This guy is dumb as because of this. If you do that, this is what's going to happen. Did you think of that? No, you probably didn't think of that because this is going to happen also. And so I get so wrapped up around that, and people in my life know that I get wrapped up around the axle on seeing people give terrible freaking advice on the internet. So for people that are in my situation that want to help other people from, I guess, what do you call them? Wolves in sheep clothing.
Yeah.
What would you suggest for me?
Go hard at the content, not at the person. Like, make specific content that counters the bad advice. Call out the bad advice without calling out the human.
Okay.
I'll give you an example. One of my coaching programs that evolved into what now I have as my Good Life Playbook, which is like a Netflix of a bunch of different coaching programs, and it's a monthly fee or whatever. It used to be $2,000 just to get into the social media part. When I was coaching people just on the social media stuff, so I got YouTube certified, and I was teaching people how to set up social media strategies for their business or their personal brand or whatever. I had somebody who was joining my program send me a direct message saying, hey, have you heard, and I won't name their name, have you heard of this person? I had actually been connected and in programs where this other person existed. Have you heard of this dude? We'll say he's a dude. Yep, heard of him. No, I don't know him personally, but I know him. Yeah, he just sold my sister this like $20,000 or $30,000 course that didn't teach her jack compared to what your little course that no one knows about is teaching. What do you say to that? I said, well, tell your sister to request a refund immediately
Yep.
and to be careful. Just because someone is popular on social media doesn't mean they're actually trying to help you. I said, because make no mistake,
That's
a
good.
lot of the people
Good
that
phrase.
you know them because they paid to make you know them. That's the trick, especially in
Say
places
that one more time, just to reemphasize that.
like a lot of the people that you know on social media, you know them because they paid to make you know them, especially in the context of YouTube and Facebook. If you come to know somebody in your Facebook feed, it's because they paid to do it. Like most of the people that know me on Facebook, I paid to make them know me. Now the difference is I'm trying to actually help them. I'm not
Right.
trying to shove $30,000 programs down their throat when they show up. But so instead of me making a, because I'm like you, man, I'm like, man, I'm gonna freaking fry this mother.
Yeah, game on, man.
Like,
Game on.
I'm gonna make a video. I'm gonna talk about him and some of the dumbass advice I know he gives. Like, and then it was like, stop. Just
Yeah.
make a ton of better content and put it out for free.
Yeah.
And then become the alternative to this. Like, because what people end up saying is, oh, I went through your program for free.
What
And
else
this
you got?
dude's charging 10 G's for what could he possibly be teaching that's not in here? I'm like, well, he may know some things, he may have some connections, he might be able
You
to
never
hook you
know.
up. But you have to decide if that value is worth 10 G's to you, right? And then I had people in my, $2,000 program, literally YouTubers who were more popular than me, had a bigger following than me. And one of them specifically told me, he's like, dude, I'm just in this program because I like you. It's like, I don't need your help. It's like, I know how to do
Hanging
this.
out.
I'm killing it on YouTube. I don't need your help. He's like, but you are dope. And I was like, dang, that's a huge compliment. He's like,
Man,
no, I
yeah.
appreciate you because you're legitimately trying to help people.
Yep.
He's like, I don't need to be here. But he's like, and frankly, so much of what you do ends up being life advice. It starts as marketing or whatever. And then you get into helping me be a better human. I was like, oh, dude, that's a blessing. So yeah, go hard. Like, make a video called "Has Somebody Told You This Nonsense?" Right? Make that the title, and then say the nonsense, and then say the truth. If you look at my most popular videos on TikTok, for example, and this is some tricks you can apply on YouTube too. Title is so important because you've got to immediately get the curiosity. So, my second most popular video on TikTok is a fitness video, believe it or not.
You
Uh,
fitness?
huh?
You fitness?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm kidding. I'm messing with
Yeah, I know, right?
you. I'm messing with you.
And so, but the thumbnail that people see before they click on it has my hand like this, and it says, "Do you believe these three horrible lies about losing weight or something like that?" And so now everyone's curious, like, what lies have I bought into?
That
Oh
makes it
no, right?
curious.
So do the same thing. Like, so in matter of fact, I have the book right here. And this book we learned is called Riveted by
You
John
read a
Davies.
lot, don't you?
Oh yeah, because I'm so dumb, man. I gotta read smart people.
I've. We'll hit back on that later. Continue your story. Continue your story.
I read a lot because I know I'm stupid and I gotta not be so dumb. But in the book, it talks about what humans pay the most attention to is what they fear or hope is true, is one of the huge ones. Like the first thing we pay the most attention to is the face of other humans because we associate that with survival. But outside of that, we pay very close attention to something we fear or something we hope. So that's why coronavirus blows up because everyone's so terrified they're going to die.
Right.
So I'm playing on the fear that most people have when it comes to fitness, which is I'm doing this stuff and I'm not getting in shape. And then my video says, do you believe these three lies about fitness? And it's like, oh, I got to watch because I probably do. And this dude looks like he might work out. I don't know. And then I go right into, I kill the fear with the truth. It's one, you don't have to do workouts you hate. I hate running. That's why I knew me in the Army weren't going to get along forever.
Oh, dude, yeah.
Like
Appreciate
I'm
the
not
quiet, man.
running 7 miles any freaking more because it's boring. I'm a football player. You also
Sprints.
don't have to work out like an insane person every day. That's how you get injured when you start to get older.
Yep.
Right. And then it's, the last one is, yeah, cheap meals are fine. Calm down. But cheat meals can't be every dang day if you're trying to get 6-pack abs, right? So it's what you want to do is use a similar model. It's what is the lie or a group of lies that these people are, and the sad thing is they're not even really lies. They're just usually omitting some truth or giving blanket stupid advice.
Which is hard to nail down, because once you start nailing down of why it's wrong, you actually have to go into a long explanation.
Right.
Because of everything they're admitted. Like, to me, it's almost, I don't say an evil that's out there, because that's not, that's a little too harsh.
Yeah.
But it's specifically targeted for people who would buy into it, and they would need a lot of explaining to get out of it.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Very much. Very 100%. And you know, you perfectly described the fitness industry. It is evil in some cases. It's intentionally confusing to keep you coming back and reading blogs and buying supplements.
Yeah, it is evil. Okay.
Yeah. In some cases. You're right. In a lot of cases it's not evil. It's just we got to eat and people are stupid, so here. But in some cases it's just outright malicious. Like we just keep these people fat so they'll keep buying our stuff. Yeah. You know, and that's the trick. So my advice is feel all of the anger that you feel and transmute that energy into creating content that tears down the lies. Like, basically just scream the truth louder than the other people are screaming either the lies or the bad advice.
Okay.
And that's what's always going to win, because what ends up happening if you get into like a rap battle with someone is you'll get a ton of attention, but you'll both lose credibility.
I can't. You want to do a rap battle right now? Let me get my hat. Hold on, I have a backwards hat I can put on somewhere in here. No, you're right there.
Yeah, you'll get a ton of attention because people love drama, but you'll lose credibility.
Okay, and that's from a respect standpoint too. You know, the leader who sees somebody else who's a leader doing something wrong, that a true leader is not going to knock that leader down. Right,
especially not in front of their people.
Exactly. So
yeah.
I actually just kind of got the chills as I said that, because that makes sense in a battle, I guess, environment. So yeah, awesome.
Yes, sir.
Well, I don't know. You're gonna send me the bill for that one?
Or no, that one is free of charge, man.
All right,
I got you.
So the favorite thing I love about your videos is I never ever saw anything about sign up for my stuff.
Yeah.
What in the world are you doing? I'm kidding.
Yeah. But you're not the first person. I've actually had a customer yell at me before for even stuff I charge for. He's like, "Why is this not $5,000? Why is it $2,000?" Because, man, try to help. Calm down.
People, don't you understand?
Like, dude, you could be making so much more money. I'm like, yeah, but I could also be building something much bigger than, you know, I can make 100,000 this month, or I can make $1 billion in 10 years. Which one do you want?
Yeah. You know, it's about that self-sacrifice. And so I started, I guess, making social media videos. By the way, I made tons of, high 8 tape VHS style videos as a kid.
Yeah.
And I edited them on my old, Dell computer with a dial-up internet, 1,000 AOL hours for free. Had 5 of those CDs, to throw those in. And so I had a lot of experience as a kid, making those videos. And the military had a GoPro, so being EOD, had some videos of blowing stuff up. Never got deployed. And that's something else that I want to talk to you offline personally. Okay. I think you probably have some really good guidance on people who have not gone through what you went through, but have had to train up for it. It's like being on the football team and never playing.
Right.
So when you get to the locker room, everyone's like, "Ooh, that was a hard game." You're like, "Yeah, it looks like it."
Yeah, you guys look like you really hustled out there.
Man, everybody's sweating. You guys want some water? Right. Anyway, so once I got in the financial industry, you have your typical social media plugs of popular financial advice, some of it good, some of it bad, etc. But I hadn't really seen anybody around that was, my age, and putting out videos. And so I started putting out videos on like little things like the TSP. Like the default for the TSP is the G Fund. Do you know what the rate of return for the G Fund is over the past 10 years? It's below 2.
Yeah.
It's not very good.
Yeah, you got to diversify it. Yeah, for sure.
Diversify. And I had one person who actually didn't end up being a client.
Below 2. Jesus, you could just invest in the Nasdaq can't get 7.
Yeah, and
Jeez.
this one client, not say client, this one friend who was thinking about becoming a client, I always walk through everyone through a process before they become actual clients. You know, like, here, let me help you out all I can, and at the end of it, if you want to become a client, cool. If not, that's fine too. But he had for 7 years put in money into the G fund, and it ended up being about a $750,000 difference in a 40-year span.
Wow. God bless him.
If you had, and so I put out a video, a few weeks ago, and it has over 1,000 views, and I'm like, woo!
Yes, sir. That's good.
That's good. And so that's the kind of content that I'm wanting to produce. But how would you translate that to a business model to where to like what you're doing as far as giving advice for free, but I do have to get paid. So what advice would you have for somebody like that?
So it's just about giving more than you take, right? So so the people don't think I sound as altruistic as you made me sound. If you dig far enough, you can find tons of videos of me telling people to join programs.
Hey,
and part of the reason why I don't do that so much anymore is not because I'm a great person, because I learned it doesn't work. Like, if you're constantly pushing this thing, a lot of people are just like, dude, we heard it already.
Heard it.
The key is you give somebody something, because what you really become, and this is what I tell people, everybody's business has got to learn this in 2020 going forward. Your business, what you do is actually building time machines. Right? It's not financial advisory services.
Wow. I see what
You're
you're
building time machine. Because I can go read The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. I can read, Advice for Investors and Managers by Warren Buffett. I can read Tony Robbins' Money Master the Game. I could read, Ray Dalio's. I can read everything that you've been trained to do. I could do it. I could go get the education to advise myself if I wanted to put in the 10,000 hours of time to become an expert like you have. What I'm going to give you money for is you are going to take that 10,000 hours and turn it into a 1-hour meeting and then a monthly checkup. So now we'll probably spend, I don't know, 100 hours together over the course of our lives. And I'll still have at my disposal, in my arsenal, the 10,000 hours worth of skill. I'm just paying you in this case to do it.
Yep.
Right. So you got to see what you're doing. You've got to create content that's so valuable and positions yourself as the expert so that they want to hire you. Like I actually have a YouTube video that earned me, I think altogether that video earned me over $20,000 with roughly 18,000 views. So I'm making more than $1 per view.
That's
right.
Where I come from. It's pretty
not too bad. Yeah. I didn't ask for a sale. I just spent 40 minutes showing people my process for how I helped a client get 100,000 customers to their website in 2 days. And it went so well that it was Facebook ads. Facebook sent me an email. Can we get on the phone? We need to talk about this. Because this is one of the only, Facebook did. And they this is one of the only ads that got it back when they used to rank it 1 out of 10.
Yeah.
Your ad is getting 10 out of 10. What in God's name did you do?
They're like,
they couldn't figure it out.
Doing? Yep.
And
you charged them to tell them, right? You charged them.
I wish I could have. It's funny. My uncle asked me the same thing. You got money for that? Right? Of course I didn't get money.
Uncle Larry
called me.
Uncle
you know what I mean? Like, no, it's a different uncle.
Okay.
And it was like, come on, man. It's Facebook's calling me. You think I'm not going to take that call?
Yeah, I got it.
But
call. Yeah.
I positioned and the beautiful thing was, and that's why longer form content for you is going to kill, because make your 1-minute TikTok videos, make your 5-minute calling out the BS videos, but make the 30-minute seminar videos. Right. Why? Because most people are only going to watch 7 minutes of it, determine this dude's an expert. How do I get in touch with him so he can just do it for me?
Yep.
Like I showed everybody in that Facebook video, step by step. The only thing I didn't show them how to do was set up a Facebook account. Step by step, how to target an audience.
They couldn't do that.
How to do a lookalike audience. How much money to spend. And when I only spent $5 the first day, and then I upped it. And
what was your engagement with percentage rate?
With that ad?
No, just like in general. Like what's a good engagement rate for you?
For giving context.
People reached versus people engaged for an ad.
Oh, for an ad?
Hmm.
So it totally depends on the ad and the set,
Okay,
what's
so you're a little
being
bit more
presented.
advanced than me.
There's a lot of
I'm an
nuance
idiot.
to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on.
So
In general, can we just say that? In general?
so let's call it an engagement ad, right? Or let's
Okay.
call it an awareness ad. I just want people to see it, right? It's going to land in, let's say, 1,000 people's stream.
Right.
I can count on, if it's just an awareness ad, meaning people are going to stop and look at it, I can count on probably, let me do it like this: 2.5% is always good. I call it the law of 2.5%. So let's say I have 50, what do I have now? Almost 60,000 TikTok followers, 58 or something like that. So let's
48,000.
just, for the sake of math, because I suck at doing math in my head because I'm a computer scientist. Uh, let's say I had 100,000 followers.
Okay.
I should be getting at least 2,500 views on every video. If it goes below 2,500, I've done something catastrophically wrong. Right. So same thing, like when let's say you're doing, let's make it more personal to what you do. When you're doing your business development, whether you're going to LinkedIn and reaching out to people, or
I don't do that.
you're going to meetings and meeting
Okay.
people in real life, whatever it is you do, you should expect 2.5% of the people that you reach out to buy from you.
Ooh,
So
that's really low. Yeah.
it is.
That's really
So
low.
you need to reach out to 100 people to guarantee 4.
Right.
Right? Is it sometimes higher? Is it sometimes lower? Of course. Right? Because you will certainly get more engagement, because it's nothing to engage on a video, right? Like with 100,000 followers, I want at least 15%. I
Well,
want at least 15% viewership, and engagement should at least be, I'd say, 10% of that.
that's exactly what I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends have been reaching out to me lately, and actually quite a few military people, asking what it is I'm doing on social media and why I'm had that mediocrity success that I have had. And my engagement rate is about 10%.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure, to be honest with you, what in the world that even meant.
Right.
So if 10% is good,
10% is great. Like I would say, if I put out a video today, 15% of my audience better watch it, or that's a red flag. That either don't make this anymore, or TikTok gets weird about timing.
okay.
So it's a little different than like a YouTube situation where I'm guaranteed a certain number of people are going to see it, which works for and against you. If 15% of my audience, so like, again, going back to, if I have 100,000 followers, if within 24 hours, 15,000 people don't see this,
Red flag.
I need to, or at least within 72 hours, if 15,000 people haven't watched it, red flag. So I've got some analysis to do.
Okay.
Within that, if 15,000 people did watch it, at the minimum, 2.5% better have engaged. Or I made something that just, so I start to evaluate, okay, where am I wrong? Did I make something that wasn't engaging? Did I not have a call to action? Did I say everything and not ask the audience to actually participate in it?
I'm terrible about that. I'm the worst one about that in the world.
It takes practice, because it's not natural. You wouldn't do it in it. Like if you and I are hanging out, you wouldn't be like, so tell me your 7 thoughts. Like you wouldn't do that in a real conversation. You know what I'm saying? Like,
what's your top 3 favorite moments? You're like, yeah.
Right. Like it would happen naturally if you and me are hanging out having coffee. Like, yo, my favorite movies are Bill and Ted's.
Yeah.
Like, oh, and make sure you follow me tonight. We're just like,
what the hell are you talking about? Follow me.
Freaking stalker, right?
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Share your location with me.
You want 15% attach rate is what we call it in the YouTube space. It's, if I have this many followers, and like I said, TikTok, give it a couple of days before you judge it, because TikTok, you can have no views and then all of a sudden you got 20,000. Where did that come from?
Yeah, the only video I have on there that's popped is me topless shooting in 249 with shades on.
Hell yeah. I'm gonna go like that at the end of this podcast.
Oh. Well,
no, matter of fact, no, I don't even have to wait. I'm not on my phone. Here we go.
There you go. Yeah, it's a ridiculous video. And at the end of it, I said, that's America. But the I'll go and let you.
No, you're good, man.
The biggest thing I want the followers and whoever's listening to this podcast get from this past 15-minute conversation with Bryant, you don't have to ask, in my opinion, you don't have to ask for people to engage with you. You don't have to ask people to email you, because if they're interested in your stuff, they'll actually reach out to you. Turns out your email should be pretty easily accessible. Your phone number, in certain instances, should be easily accessible.
Right.
I personally feel, especially in the financial world, you have people saying that if that didn't make you a whole lot of money, call me now and I'll tell you even how to make more money. It's like, hey, that seems like a scam to me.
Right.
It may not be. It may be totally innocent. There may be a whole lot more money to be made, from the things that they're saying. But whenever you give somebody like a little bite, it's almost like it's not a bite, it's a bait.
Right.
That's how I look at it.
Right.
So I'm working on the full continuity, just like you mentioned, 30-minute actual lecture video to have people watch. Will they watch all of it? I don't know.
Some will. So a percentage will watch everything. And those are the videos where you can be more deliberate in saying, hey, if you'd like to bring me in to have a conversation with you about how I can help you, here's how to get in touch with me. And you can always build it in, do it like a sales call, build it in before the end of the talk, right? Like the great thing about YouTube, for example, and TikTok, believe it or not, if you have a pro account, it'll show you when people are leaving. So if right at about 7 minutes is when people are bouncing. At 6 minutes, say, hey, by the way, at the end of this call, or whenever convenient for you, if you want to get in touch with me and I can help you save the world, here's how to get in touch with me. You just flash it on the screen, leave it up for 3 to 7 seconds, and then keep going.
Okay.
So yeah, definitely do that for sure. And you're right. Like, you don't have to add, like, if what you've given has so much value built into it that they just have to reach out to you, they will. The one caveat I'll give you is that people in general are so violently distracted that sometimes if you don't if you don't have a call to action, it's not that they don't want to connect, it's just that they get distracted. It's like, oh yeah, I should have liked this video, or I should have left a comment. So having a call to action that doesn't sound like a call to action is usually the best. Like, I don't think I've ever asked anybody to follow me on TikTok, but I'll build in things that will make people ask me questions. Like, leave a comment below if you want me to give you a link to this book that I'm talking about for free. And then it's about my comment is getting me. If I'm the viewer, the comment is about me getting value, not about me promoting your TikTok video.
And those comments, people get on TikTok. I'm telling you, it's the way to go. Social media is so much cooler with TikTok.
Absolutely.
What is the most meaningful relationship you've had on TikTok so far, and how long have you been on it?
So, I mean, technically, I've had a Musical.ly account for 3 years. I wasn't on it, though, but I've been on it actively, like making content every day, I think, for about 2 months.
Yeah, that's what I was going to be really mad about.
Like
you have, like, 50,000 followers. Yeah.
2 or 3 months. Like, I've been on it and off of it. Like, at first, when I first started making content, it was my editor, Tony, doing it. I wasn't even here. But I would come if someone left a comment, it was me responding. But Tony was the one doing the uploads because he's got access to the account.
Okay.
But then once I had a piece of content that I uploaded explode, it was like, all right, I should probably start doing this now. And that was the trigger. It was like, okay. So I've been doing like no nonsense with no breaks pretty much since January is when I hit the ground running and got.
Yeah, it makes me really mad. I mean, happy for you. That's great. Yeah, I literally went through your TikTok. I was like, man, almost 50,000 followers. How long has he been on? He's only been on this as long as me. Okay. Well, apparently I may have something to learn from Mr. Bryant Chambers.
Oh, but we learn from each other, man, for sure. And it's kind of sad too, because you could say I've only been on TikTok for 2 months, but I've been doing social media since. Like, there are things I've done that did not blow up or even come close to it. Like, you look at my Instagram, it's freaking a disgrace. By comparison.
I think Instagram, I'm on Instagram. I post stuff on there every now and then. I'm not really getting a good vibe from Instagram anymore. Yeah. I'm not sure how you feel about it.
I never liked it. Me and my team did the same thing we did on TikTok. We went on Instagram hard. Tony was cranking out content. And, going back to what we were saying in the beginning, it didn't get me, like, I was targeting veterans. Like, I got something to say that's going to be or even active duty or reservists, whatever. Military people. I was targeting them. Same exact, like the video on TikTok that blew up was an Instagram video that Tony just downloaded and uploaded on TikTok. I think it did 300 views on TikTok and it's somewhere around 40,000 or something like that or it did 300 views or whatever on Instagram and now it's 40,000 on TikTok. Now I'm connecting with all these vets overnight. Like, whoa, okay, great. And it's, we never liked none of the people on my team liked Instagram. Just
Yeah.
just wasn't it. It's the interface is cumbersome. Like even the usability of Instagram. Facebook has the same problems.
Yeah.
But it's just like, all right. And
TikTok
I'm
seems
not.
more directing your face. I feel like TikTok
Yeah,
is, you know.
for
And,
sure.
and YouTube, the beauty of YouTube is it's the long form of TikTok to me.
Yes.
I'm not sure if you would, I guess, well, you do agree, but yeah.
No, 100%. TikTok feeds my podcast and it feeds my, like, I'm now getting YouTube subscribers because of my TikTok.
Okay.
Because so my YouTube blew up 2 years ago. I started getting crazy followership. Right. So when people say, "Oh, he's got 25,000," yeah, he had 28,000.
Oh no.
I walked away from a specific type of content because I thought it was going to become more detrimental to people who weren't willing to dig deep into the psychology stuff that I was talking about. So I stopped doing it, and my followers bailed. They're like, "Screw this guy."
There's people who actually stop subscribing.
Yeah, either stop subscribing or stop watching or completely unsubscribed. By over 1,000 people just bounced, and most people just didn't care. They're like, "I'm not going to bother unsubscribing. I'm just going to move on." But it was right at the same time when I started TikTok. Just about, I was in California, 3 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago was when the numbers went back into the positive. Like I have been losing subscribers every single month for 2 years.
Well, you know, it's probably because I shared your stuff a few weeks
There you
ago.
go. That's it. And it was TikTok that changed it.
Yeah.
TikTok
awesome.
immediately, because people will come to TikTok like, "Yo, do you make YouTube videos?" Yeah,
I
do. And they're like, "Oh, dude, this is like a 40-minute version of this TikTok video. This is great." So yeah, TikTok was what turned that around.
That's great. To reemphasize what you're saying, I uploaded that video of me shooting the machine gun topless on Instagram, which I thought was like one of the coolest videos of all time for your military career. Like,
Yeah.
especially because I didn't deploy. Like that's the coolest one I got. Sorry, that's all I got. And so I uploaded it on Instagram, and like 10, 15 people liked it. I was like,
Yeah.
man, is that embarrassing? I guess I'll just go ahead and delete that. Then I upload it on TikTok, and all of a sudden I have 26,000 likes. I'm like,
Exactly.
I knew this video was awesome. I knew it. So
Well, and Facebook they made the announcement at the end of 2018 that that's what was coming. Facebook is now gearing all of their support to the people who pay. So if you have an Instagram account or a Facebook fan page, they want you to pay for the exposure, because they want you to, Facebook's making, I don't know how many billions of dollars on their ad platform every year.
They're always calling me saying, we can help you out with your ads.
Right. It's, "Oh, you should boost this. This one reached 300 people." Like, Facebook, you're the reason it reached 300 people. What? It's not because it's awesome or not awesome. It's because of you, and you're trying to get my money out of the deal. And it's unfortunate that Facebook, I think, well, it's fortunate for guys like me, because then I can compete at a level that other people can't, because if I'm willing to pay the piper.
Oh, okay.
But I think it's detrimental to them. Like in the short term, they're going to make billions of dollars on the ad platform, but they just sent millions of people to TikTok. Because I've been working on Instagram for 7 years, and I got 4,000 followers, and I made 2 TikTok videos, and I got 50,000 people. Not me, but that's what people are saying. I made 1 video and 1 million people saw it.
That seems like a better rate of return.
Yep.
You're saying. All right. Well,
a little bit.
I know I can tell your family's probably itching to get you back.
Yeah. Did you hear the knock at the door?
I did.
That's the one thing I meant to tell you at the beginning of the podcast is one of my 4 kids will interrupt a show. They do. No,
that's my dog is over here. He doesn't interrupt anything. He's asleep. He's a 12-year-old black lab, and he's just chilling.
And my family's not itching. That's my youngest, and they're just allowing him to run amok, and that's what he does. He inserts himself into everything. He doesn't need me for anything. He actually wants to be on camera. That's probably why he's
Get him in here.
That's locked. Nope. I'll just leave. Like, I'll put him in the chair, because my part of the show will be over if he comes in here.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Well, I would love to leave the audience with a very optimistic note, and so I would love you to have a message for everyone who's listening.
Sure.
If you have, some general advice or your thoughts.
Yeah, 100%, man. So Sun Tzu in The Art of War says that the person that knows their enemy and knows themselves will never have to fear the outcome of 100 engagements, right? And if you want to take that even out of the context of warfare, what I believe he very wisely figured out as a battlefield general was when you understand the problems that you're trying to solve and you understand why those problems are the way they are, and you have an intense amount of self-awareness, and he doesn't say this, but I would add, then this is the positive part, self-acceptance and compassion, not making apologies for how God made you, but accepting that this is the way I am, not character flaws and stuff like that, but I have a certain
aura,
disposition, and not judging yourself for it, not condemning yourself for it, accepting it, and then figuring out how to use it as a strength. When you have those two things working together for you, you can't lose. You ultimately begin to walk into what everybody's looking for, which is happiness, right? And enjoying this thing we call existence. And so that is what all the work I do on the internet and off the internet is predicated on, is that simple principle that Sun Tzu taught, was just that self-awareness and the awareness of the problems. It'll carry you through every decision you have to make, whether it's getting married, going to college, battlefield decisions, whatever it is. Having those two things in your arsenal, you cannot lose. And even if, going back to my example with failing at becoming a professional musician and failing at becoming a professional football player, it's not the end of the road. There's always another train coming. The more self-aware you get, the closer you get to the real dreams that you have. So it's all doable. You just got to have that belief in self, man.
Well, I'm just going to go ahead and quit right there. I can't, I don't have a second part for that. That's very strong, man. Where can everybody reach you at? And yeah, this is the plug that I'm trying to learn from you. Call to action.
The call to action.
Call to action.
So
right?
best places to reach me. If you want to see daily content, hit me up on TikTok. It's at Bryant Chambers Speaks. Bryant Chambers Speaks on TikTok. You can follow and subscribe to my podcast. Every Monday, 6 a.m., we're dropping something new. Awesome. Really powerful stuff for existing military veterans, but also for civilians. It's all about life and business strategy, so that you can do what Sun Tzu suggested in that quote. That's what all my content's predicated on. That's called the Bryant Chambers Movement. It's on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. It's on Alexa. It's on Castbox and all the other Android apps I can't think of the names of. It's there. If you listen to a podcast, I'm probably on the app that you're looking for. And then if you want to reach out to me directly, you can email me at contact@bryantchambers.com. Real easy to remember. Just contact at my first and last name.com. Or, if you don't want to give me your email address, you can hit me up at Bryant Chambers page on Facebook. But the best two places to go, TikTok and the podcast, where you're going to get the most value. So Bryant Chambers Speaks. Perfect. And the Bryant Chambers Movement.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead and have those two links at the bottom in the info
awesome,
for this
man.
podcast. Bryant Chambers, man, thank you to you, and thank you to your family.
Yeah, man.
The legacy your family has served this United States of America, man. That is something to be very proud of and hold tight. So I appreciate you coming on the podcast and tell your family thank you.
Oh, yeah. It's my honor to be here. I know if my dad were still living, he'd say the same. It was his honor to serve. And yeah, man, it's absolute pleasure to be here. Anytime you want me to come back, as long as my 4 children will approve the leave, I will be here, man. Right? Yeah, it's got to be signed by the 4 kids and the household sergeant major, which is my wife.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening to the Blue Falcon podcast. If you like this episode, please share it, follow, do whatever you got to do. Guys, thank you so much. Have a beautiful week.